While we've been here this week, convening during the week that was previously scheduled for a recess, we as a group of Senate Republicans have come together and offered a real meaningful solution. We have offered to raise the debt limit, introduced legislation today with 21 Republican co-sponsors in the Senate, in a piece of legislation that we're calling the Cut, Cap, Balance Act. And here's what it says. It says we'll raise the debt limit. We'll do so only under three circumstances, only after three very specific conditions precedent have been met. The first two relate to immediate spending cuts to discretionary spending and statutory spending caps, making sure that we start putting ourselves right now on a statutorily mandated glide path toward a balanced budget. The third step, which is by far the most important, involves the passage out of both houses of Congress by the requisite two-thirds margin, a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution, one that would cap spending as a percentage of GDP and one that would require a two-thirds supermajority in order to raise taxes. Upon each of those conditions being met, then the debt limit would raise. But only then. We would not raise it without those conditions having been met. Because if we don't meet those conditions, we won't be able to look our constituents in the eye and say, we've done what needs to be done in order to make sure that we get to where we need to be, in order to get to the point at which we will no longer be in a position of having to go back to the same trough every few months to go through the ceremony of raising the debt limit yet again. We have to remember that every time we do this, we run an increased risk that we'll start having to pay higher and higher yields on our Treasury instruments. Every time that happens, we incur more expenses that relate to our ability to remain current on our debt interest payments. Every time interest rates, yields on those debt instruments go up by 1 percentage point, we have to spend an additional $150 billion a year just in interest once our debt instruments catch up with the increased rate. That's a lot of money. That means that if we were just to return, let's say if interest rates were to go up 3%, we could soon find ourselves in a position in which we might be spending as much as $700 billion a year on interest. We're currently paying about $250 billion. $700 billion a year is roughly what we spend on national defense. It's roughly what we spend on Social Security in an entire year. It's close to what we pay in Medicare and Medicaid combined at the federal level in an entire year. So where's the difference going to come from when interest rates start to creep up? Even if they go up 3 percentage points, they'd still be below their historical average. That money has to come from somewhere, and it will. It'll end up coming from the various programs that Americans are most concerned about. So whether you're a conservative and you might be most concerned about that money coming from our defense budget, or on the other hand, if you're a liberal and perhaps you're most concerned about it coming from entitlements, you ought to be concerned about our practice of perpetually raising the debt limit and engaging in perpetual deficit spending, especially when that deficit spending is now in excess of $1.5 trillion every single year. This potentially threatens every federal program out there. It also interferes with the ability of each American to find the prosperity that he or she seeks, the ability of each American to live his or her life in the way that he or she chooses. That's distressing. It interferes with the liberty of the individual, which is what we've been elected to protect. I'm very proud to be part of this 21-senator coalition, a group consisting of senators who are concerned enough about this issue that they're willing to say, we understand that we can't just not raise the debt limit. There are enough people who are concerned enough in this country about not raising it, the abrupt halt in spending that would bring about would create enough uncertainty and chaos that many are unwilling to face that prospect. So recognizing that reality, we've taken the bull by the horns and we're willing to do a difficult thing. But we're saying in order for us to raise the debt limit, we have to be willing to set things in motion in such a way that will solve the underlying problem, will create permanent structural spending reform within the United States Congress.